episode 14 of NuvemTALKS. I'm your host, Maria Mahmoud, architect, interior designer, and founder of Nuvem Design. Here we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming design workflows, expanding creativity, and redefining the way we work. Each episode features inspiring professionals who are helping shape the future of our industry. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Stacy Thorwart. Stacy Thorwart is the founder of The Intelligent Designer, a global education platform helping interior designers integrate AI into every stage of their workflow. Before launching her business in 2023, Stacy spent over a decade in the commercial interiors industry, most recently leading a global AI strategy at the world's largest office furniture manufacturer. Through The Intelligent Designer, Stacy trained more than 5,000 design professionals through online courses, workshops, and industry events. Her work sits in the intersection of design, technology, and business transformation, helping firms and individuals use AI to accelerate concepts, enhance client deliverables, and streamline operations. Her mission is to close the gap between possibility and implementation, empowering designers to work smarter and stay ahead of what's next. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 14 of NuvemTALKS. Today, I have the pleasure of having Stacy with me. Stacy Thorwart. Is that the right way to say that, Stacy?
That's right. It's very hard to say Thorwart. It's German, and I sometimes mess it up as well.
Okay, Stacy, she has an Instagram that is educational for interior designers that want to implement AI on their practice. She was my first teacher, and that's why we have this connection. Actually, I started her course a few years ago, I think on the beginning of 2024. I was in Mexico on vacations and I did your course there, and it was mind-blowing. It really changed my perception on the tools and how to implement everything, especially considering that I'm in the core of Nuvem Design. We are interior designers and we're working with interior design. So it's really, really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation as well, especially because we've been connected from afar for a very long time now. And yeah, I just really commend you for being one of the true early adopters and being early into the course, and not only taking the course, but taking it to heart and implementing everything you learned and then some. It's been really fun to watch your journey.
Thank you so much. I think it's great because most of the audience for NuvemTALKS are interior designers. So I think it's going to be great because we're talking about something that we're working with. And I hope this helps everyone to implement themselves in their practices. So before we dive into AI, I would like to ask you, what was your academic and professional journey? How did you start as an architect? Tell us, in the Brazilian audience, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'd be happy to share a little bit about my background. So I studied interior design at university and had a great experience with that. And after graduating, I spent really the bulk of my professional corporate career working in commercial interiors. I worked for a company called Steelcase, which here in the US, they're a very well-known office furniture manufacturer. And through that role, I got to work very closely with commercial architecture and design firms, so large global A&D firms, and had a great experience with that. But I always had this kind of pull towards residential design as well. So for a period in time, I did have my own residential firm, which I loved, learned a lot from, but it was too much to balance with my corporate job as well. So I continued on with Steelcase, and parallel to that, in 2023, like many others, that was around the time that I started to at first just get really curious about AI, right when we were first starting to hear about what is this chat GPT that everybody's talking about.
Exactly.
And I'll never forget the first conversation that I had with chat GPT. And I remember just feeling completely blown away by this technology. And so I kind of quickly went down a rabbit hole of wanting to learn everything about it. Just as a working mom and professional, I wanted to learn how I could use it to my advantage. And through learning and kind of self-teaching, I felt like our industry as interior designers and architects, we weren't yet talking about it enough. And I was getting a lot of questions as I was starting to talk about it more from other designers about how I was using it. And that's when I had the idea to create a course to basically just share what I was learning to make it be a little bit more accessible, because especially at the time, a lot of the AI content that was out there was more geared towards like tech professionals or business professionals and not really creatives.
Yeah.
So that inspired the launch of the course, and I ran the course parallel to my corporate job at Steelcase. So it started out as kind of the side passion project. And from that work, I had the opportunity to move into a new role that they launched at Steelcase, which was to lead their AI strategy globally, which was a fantastic opportunity, a really exciting time to be stepping into that at Steelcase at like a really pivotal moment in their AI journey, and had an amazing experience. But as the intelligent designer continued to grow, it was clear that I had to make a choice of continuing corporate or to go all in on running my business full time. And so I decided to take the leap. And as of June of last year, I now run. Yes. So just as of June, a little over 6 months ago, I guess 9 months or so ago, I now have pivoted and I get to run the intelligent designer full time, which is just in a lot of ways feels like a dream come true to get to do something that I love and I'm so passionate about every single day. So it's been a winding journey. I never would have expected as an interior designer, starting out my career years ago, that this is where I would be, but I've had a lot of fun and excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that in a way, like the way it happened, like going back to the first contact, it was so impressive, right? So like when you get to have the first contact with, or when I got to have the first contact with ChatGPT, I think that 2 months later, I was already on Midjourney. And it took me a while to actually start the course, because my first contact with Midjourney was in April 2023, and I started the course in 24. Of course, it was really impressive because as designers, we all know how long it took before for you to model something and then get to the point where you put all the materials, you establish the lighting, everything, you render it, and suddenly you have like an image, right? And when I did my first prompt, I was so impressed that I started sending it to everyone, like, oh my God, what is this, right?
Yeah.
What is this? What is this? Like my text becoming an image? Like this first moment is really impressive, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know how I ended up following you. I think that my interest peaked after I started with Midjourney, and probably I started following you there, like on Instagram. I saw your development, and you were really growing from the very beginning when we had the first contact, and we were together in the community in Facebook to what is happening now, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I would like you to, like, now that you gave us like this overview on your journey, what is going on now? What does it mean, this change on going fully to the dedicated to the intelligent designer platform, and how is it working now? How is it different from what it was before?
Yeah, these are such great questions. So the the platform and the way that I teach and the model that I teach has evolved quite a bit, as you can imagine, just even in a very short period of time. And largely that's because AI is just changing so rapidly. Anyone that is using it or is watching the space just knows how like every week there's a new model or a new update that's coming out. And so because of that, I think two things happened. One, when I stepped away from my corporate job, I finally then was able to I had the capacity to really do a lot of the things that I had been wanting to do to take the course and community further that just it wasn't a reality when I was still working my corporate job, my 9-to-5 job. And so I had the capacity and bandwidth to expand it the way that I had wanted to for a long time. And the biggest pivot, though, is when I first launched the course, it started out as just a standalone course. So you purchased it one time and I would update it and it was yours. But what was happening was that because things are changing so quickly, I was not only having to do like small updates, but entire workflows or tools were coming out that didn't even exist when I had launched the original version. So I made the decision to pivot from a one-time purchase model to a membership model. So as you can imagine, it was a big pivot to go from a course model to a membership model. But there's been so many benefits now that I have made that pivot, mostly for the students, because what the membership allows me to do is provide ongoing updates. So now there's the core course, which is also now CEU accredited by IDCEC, which was another like one of those things that I really wanted to have as part of it, so designers could earn credits while they complete the lessons. So there's the course, but then I also do mini tutorials. So every month, as there's a new tool that I found or a new workflow or a new improvement or update, I'm able to push and share that content out much more regularly. And so it's, I think, a better experience for the students. And outside from that, as you mentioned, we used to have, it started as this quaint little Facebook group, but as the community grew and grew, found that Facebook just didn't really lend itself to a true community space. And so now we've moved the community into the same platform where I host the course. And we have different channels set up for sharing prompts and AI wins and questions. And the space is just a lot more dynamic than what it was before. And that's probably my favorite part, is the community aspect of it, because I think it's one thing for me to share what I'm learning, but there's so much more richness and power in designers from around the world really sharing what's working for them from their real life lived experiences. So that's the part of the shift to the community model and the membership model that's been working really well. And I'm excited to just keep it going. So we have this space where designers can come together, and it feels like a safe space where they can share and ask questions without feeling like any question is too silly.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Like it was kind of unexpected, the speed that the tools evolved, and we were having a certain pace until the end of 24, but then on the beginning of 25, I think around like again April, May, everything started going so fast. And this year I'm not gonna talk about it. It's completely insane, right? Like every day is something different, and you're like, oh my god, like how to deal with this huge wave of information. And I think that having a community to exchange about it so important, right? Because then you have like a space to talk about it on the daily basis. This is really, really cool. I think it's a very nice way to deal with this fast-paced changes in the field.
Absolutely. And just having a filter, in a lot of ways, that's what I see myself as, is a filter for, there's all of this noise out there about what tools are launching and what is being marketed to you on Instagram of, the best AI tool that you have to have that's going to change your life. Designers are being inundated with that type of information. And so my goal is to be kind of this filter that as I'm testing things, to distill it down to just what is actually meaningful for designers and what is really going to be helpful, and what can they just ignore for the time being? Because there's a lot of, we only have so many hours in the day. There's only so many tools that we can master and new workflows that we can implement. So try to just focus and distill it down into those tips that I think are really going to drive value for designers.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because it's a safe space with a trusted person that can actually say, this is okay, this is not okay. And we are always talking about this also with other guests from NuvemTALKS, that there's like you said, a lot of noise, a lot of people saying things, or coaches saying things that are not entirely correctly. I'm not going to name anyone, but I think that basically saying that AI is magic, that there's no effort involved on establishing your workflows. And we know for a fact it's not true, right? Like it starts with understanding your processes, identifying how to implement the best way. So I think that it's like really an exercise of analysis of what is the profession, how it is impacting on the processes, how can we talk to the clients now that we have these possibilities, right? It's so much that is changing because of the implementation of AI, right?
Absolutely. And I think you bring up such a good point too, because I see this firsthand with students inside of the community. It's just there's a lot of confusion coming into it around what AI can and can't do. And I think sometimes when we just see, the pretty final image on Instagram or on elsewhere on social media, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I can just ditch all of my other design tools and this is just going to do it for me. And that's just not the case. That's not where the technology is today. And in a lot of ways, too, some of that is a good thing, right? Because we don't want it to, if it gets to the place where we truly can throw out all of our design tools, that's a very different place in the industry and what it will mean for true job disruption for designers. So I think just a lot of what I try and do in the course and the live trainings is to kind of temper expectations too around there are some fantastic ways where AI will 100% help you. And then there are other ways where it's just the technology is not able to do that yet. And that's okay. As long as you know where it's a fit, you're not going to spend your time spinning your wheels. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there right now around seeing what it can and can't do. And even with the time savings piece of it, the other thing that I've been trying to incorporate more into my conversations is that I think there's a tendency when we think about AI adoption of this is going to help me be more efficient. And that's true. Of course it is. It can absolutely help you do things faster. However, what I think is much more interesting for us as a creative profession is to think about how it can not only help us do things more efficiently, but what type of innovation can it unlock for us? So like, what are things that maybe as a designer that you've always wanted to explore, but didn't have the capacity, the resources, the skills to do before, that now you can quite literally do that with so many of the tools that are out there and very accessible. So I would love to see as we start to get more comfortable and adopting like further along the AI adoption journey of like, how can we start to expand the conversation from this is going to save me time to, wow, I've just developed an app for a design tool that I never would have been able to do before. That to me, I think is going to be a really exciting time for our industry when we can start thinking about it through that lens instead of just, well, it saved me time.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I have a question for you that I think that like for interior designers is it's interesting to know your point of view, like considering everything that happened up to now and knowing very well the profession. What do you think was like the biggest impact on having these tools available for an interior designer? So considering the design process and everything that we have that is involved that involves developing an interior design project, like where do you see the biggest impact, and that was unexpected or unforeseen, and that you think it's like really, really great that the designers know of?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think because, and you will know this because you were an early adopter, when I think back on the trajectory of the image models in particular, like what we started with a few years ago, as exciting and wonderful as Midjourney is and was at the time, you know as well as anyone that used it in the early days or even now, it can generate beautiful images, but it didn't offer the capacity to really make those fine-tuned refinements while keeping your existing image intact. And that was something from day one, as I was learning it and teaching it to others, we all wanted that. We wanted that capability of like, that's beautiful, but I just want to change the paint color. I don't want to change the whole room. I just want to change this one thing. And so as the models have started, the image models have progressed, in particular, Google's Gemini Nano Banana, now Pro, the second version of it, that I see as a fundamental shift in the technology kind of journey in terms of how useful it is for professional design workflows. So moving from like, okay, can be really helpful in conceptual design for ideation to now it is useful really throughout all stages of the design process, and being able to effectively and efficiently communicate ideas visually now with that degree of accuracy, it still blows my mind every day. And I think sometimes I notice this too with in particular with the live trainings I do with firms. It's oftentimes it's human nature to go to, well, I wish it could do this, or I wish I didn't have to like run it 3 times to get it to do that. And I kind of have to remind people a lot of like, we need to take a step back and think about the fact that what we're doing, this didn't exist 6 months ago. I mean, we're talking about something that is so new that 6 months ago, if you would have said that you could take an image from a product manufacturer and perfectly place it into an image, an existing room image, and then manipulate it further, we couldn't do that. And so, although the tendency is to be like, oh, but now I wish I could do X, Y, and Z, I think just taking a moment to appreciate like what a fundamental shift this is something that I would encourage all designers to try. So very long way of saying, if you haven't tried Nano Banana Pro yet for your visualization and rendering workflows, it's a fantastic tool and a great place to start. And with any conversation around tools and workflows, like visualizations are so important to what we do as designers. So that is why, a lot of what I teach has an emphasis on that.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not the only thing, right? We're not just doing renderings and visualizations all day. There's so much back-end support and administrative work and project management that goes into a successful design project. So I think if we put visualizations and renderings and the image models aside, I think one of the other big surprises to me was the rise of transcription tools. So tools that you can now take to your client meetings, your site walks, your Zoom calls, and have this written record of everything the client is saying, which then can feed directly in as the context that you need to give to your AI to help with every other phase of the design project. That to me felt like such a missing piece, because otherwise you'd have to spend so much time providing that context to the AI. And so I think that's kind of an overlooked area, but one that I coach a lot of designers to think about of how are they capturing those meeting notes and minutes, because that is ripe for AI to be able to come in and help with, to be able to then use as the context that feeds all the other ways that you might use it throughout the process.
It's really amazing, right? And even like nowadays, when I think of making notes, like handwritten notes on a meeting, I'm like, oh my God, no. Like there's like this way of registering everything that is in the conversation and adding these to another AI to keep the log of everything and consulting it back, again, it's really, really, really great for interior designers, right? And for everyone, I guess.
Exactly, because inevitably, like, there's only so much information that we can take in. I pride myself as being a great note taker, a great listener, but still there's always things that I miss. And so having this record, I think so much of what we do as designers, it really is about identifying the issue, the pain point, what is the client, what are their goals, what are they trying to solve for? And AI can just be such a fantastic thought partner when it has access to, the language that the client was actually using to describe what they wanted.
Yeah, in Nuvem, we like very much to use this information, especially on the briefing sessions, to become like a report about the first contact with the client, and also like introduce the first ideas, the first translation between subject feelings and physicality, right? Like materials, materiality. And then after that, prompts that will probably end up like being used in Midjourney if we are working on a conceptual design. And it's so great because it's like it can be intuitive, but throughout like a course as yours, you can also learn how to use a sequence of tools. Like we said, like we are talking about like image creation, but an enhancement, but we can also think of like the note taking, AI note taking helps so much, like ChatGPT. Which other tools are you using? Which other tools, because we're talking about like tools for interior designers, but how do you use, like, what are your preferred tools on your daily basis, on your work?
Yeah. Yes, I love this question. I feel like this is like the dinner table conversation I get a lot too. Once people find out what I do, they're like, "Oh, what are the tools you're using?" Everyone wants to talk about tools, which I love. I am happy to talk about tools all day long. I would say that because I'm fortunate to be able to have access to these tools and to be able to be in a position where I get to test and test and test lots of things. So I would say that advantage is probably a little bit different than the everyday person that might stick with a tool and not be experimenting so broadly. But because of that, I would say that my tool stack is pretty frequently evolving. So whereas I would say even a few months ago, I was very much heavily using ChatGPT. And lately, particularly because of something that is brand new within Google, so Gemini, you can now connect all of your other Google platforms. So your Gmail, your calendar, your Google Drive. Now, of course, you can do this in other tools like ChatGPT, but I'm finding that the direct integration, because Gemini is a Google product, is just so fantastic, where I'm not uploading anything. I can just say something like, what did the Hawthorns ask, what was the finish that they approved in our meeting last week? And it can go through my Gmail, it can go through my Google Drive and find that for me. And that to me is a game changer. That level, that depth of integration is very, very new, and it unlocks a lot. So because of that, I'm finding myself over in Google and Gemini quite a bit more than I was even 3, 4, 5 months ago. And second to that, I would say this month I have been going all in on Claude, in particular Claude Code, which sounds very techy and probably a little bit overwhelming to the non-tech lovers that are out there. But I see there's so many capabilities with Claude because of the models. It is the one that is best able to really start to take actions for you. So what I mean by that is an example of like you can give it access to your desktop. So I can point Claude and say, hey, create this folder for me on my desktop and clean up all of my Zoom meeting recordings and label them X, Y, and Z, or create an expense report from this file that has all of these screenshots of receipts in it. And it can do those things on its own. So because of that, I see a ton of possibilities with Claude, particularly for designers that are looking to kind of take their skills a bit further and start to move from beyond just chatting with AI and moving into the space where it's really starting to take actions for you, both on your desktop and your browser as well. So I'm doing a whole tutorial on that inside of my community. But because of that, so Claude is I'm feeling very optimistic about. Gemini using a ton. The last one that I would say, just as kind of like an interesting anecdote, in my course, I used to just be very focused on teaching like directly in the frontier models, meaning like I would teach inside of ChatGPT or I would teach inside of Gemini to access Nano Banana. But what's starting to happen, as you're familiar with, is that in particular with image models, they are evolving so rapidly, right? So Gemini comes out with Nano Banana Pro, then ChatGPT comes out with a new version of ChatGPT images, and Flux comes out with a new model. And so what I have shifted to, and what I use primarily now myself for any type of visualization workflow, instead of accessing these tools natively in a chat interface, which quite frankly just doesn't really lend itself to creative design workflows. Like a chat interface is designed for chatting. It's not really designed for design workflows. So I use a platform now called FreePix. Yes. And, you know, I'm not sponsored or endorsed by any of these companies. And there's many of these, there's different versions of FreePix out there. Like another one people are familiar with or might be is called Krea. And basically what they are, they're called multi-model platforms. So instead of having lots and lots of different subscriptions to different image models or video generators or AI image upscalers, they centralize all of those models in one place. So when I'm generating an image now, I can choose, do I want to use Nano Banana? Do I want to use ChatGPT images? Do I want to use Flux? And it really just centralizes that process for me. And the platform is much better for creative workflows. So that is something that I think we'll start to see more of a shift towards as well. It's a great place to start inside of the frontier tools, but these multi-model platforms can be extremely helpful for designers that are looking for more of an integrated platform.
Okay. Understood. So about these multi-model platforms, because we also have a community in Brazil that is not like online as yours. It's more of a study group, I would say. And it's on WhatsApp. We have 400 people.
Amazing.
Every day taking, and we from time to time we're talking about this, the multimodal platforms, but it feels that sometimes like for each tool there's a little bit of like a few limitations on the performance of each tool that is inside. Can you go over this? What would you say about that?
Yeah, so I will speak to FreePix directly because there's lots of other multi-model platforms out there. So FreePix is not the only game in town. Even like Adobe, most people are probably familiar with Adobe. They have a multi-model platform as well. Krea is another one. But for FreePix, I will say that there are not limitations, at least that I've in any of the experiments that I've run. In fact, like I'll use Nano Banana as an example. So if you're generating images over inside of Gemini, on the regular Nano Banana model, you get one image back at a time, maybe two if you're on a higher tier plan. In FreePix, I can set it to actually 4 images. So I'm generating more images in less time. I can set my aspect ratio. They have an interface, an area of the interface where I can actually open up an image and type my edits on top of the image. So it allows me to kind of prompt a little bit more precisely. So with, again, this is specific to FreePix. I have found that it enhances the capabilities of the models. The models themselves, like what is actually generating the image is the same, but there are benefits to the interface that they provide. And that's usually when I'm coaching designers and they're like, well, should we use Krea or FreePix or Gemini or this other, app that I saw on Instagram? It really becomes a choice of like, what interface do you like the best? Because that's what you're paying for, basically, is the interface, because the model powering it is the same. So which interface do you find the most intuitive for you, for your team? That is where you should base your decision on versus, just the model alone, because that's really what these platforms are trying to do. They're trying to diversify themselves based on how the interface looks, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it's very useful to change from the traditional model, which is the chat model, because as you say, it's not very intuitive for designers, and it is true, right? A final question about free picks. Is
Yes.
it like a Canvas model and you have like the node-based structure? Is that how it works? Like Flora, for example?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you brought that up too. So you can do both inside of free picks, which is great because there are some designers, actually a lot of us out there, if you've never used like a Canvas model with a node-based workflow, it can be really intimidating. Like, what, you want me to learn AI and now you want me to learn like nodes? What the heck are nodes? So I love the Canvas and the node-based workflow. And so I do teach it. But I also love that they offer more of a traditional interface where you have a window where you type in your prompt and it generates the image, and then you can refine it from there. So you can access both interfaces inside of one tool, which is another reason why I really like it, because it gives you flexibility depending on if you like the node workflows or not.
Awesome. I haven't seen it, but it is true that as you said, and I was listening to a podcast this morning that spoke exactly about this, that now it's being said that there are two types of users of AI, right? Like the ones that are only on the surface, like really chatting with the platforms, but not going deep. And the ones that are really studying how to create workflows or even use the agentic models to increase their efficiency, productivity, and even to open other doors that we might not be seeing, right? Like in terms of a sequence and process.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there any project or a case study of yours that you would like to share with us here that is connected to interior design, either in still case or on your practice, or even like a student case that you would like to share as an example of success of implementation of AI?
Yeah, so I'll give you two. One a little bit more personal to like a case study being me and my course. But separate from that, from an interior design perspective, I mean, I'm fortunate because with the students inside of my course and the live trainings that there's so many case studies, right, to choose from. But some of my favorite messages to get are designers where they've implemented it, specifically the visualization workflows, a lot of what we've been talking about today with Nano Banana Pro. For example, I had just a couple of weeks ago a student in the community. She posted a visualization she created for a client using Nano Banana Pro, and she took it a step further, actually animating it, which is, I'm a big believer that animations and video models are going to quickly become the expectation. Just as photorealistic renderings became the expectation, now we're going to be seeing that with animations because it's so easy to create them now. So she quickly kind of spun up this beautiful photorealistic rendering and then this animation to go with it. And she said the client was blown away and it helped close the project for her. And I think it's just, I love that example and seeing examples like that, because that is really just such a great use case and low-hanging fruit. Like, clients need help visualizing their space oftentimes before they can commit. And for some designers, they either had to outsource their renderings or they didn't have the budget or the scope for it. And the project just frankly didn't warrant that level of visualization. So they would create kind of 2D static mood boards. And now anyone in their design practice can take those visualizations further without having to spend, hundreds of dollars outsourcing them. And so I think seeing students apply it and then get immediate value back by being able to close projects sooner or delivering a better client experience, that to me is just like, the best is seeing it so to happen so quickly and in real time. And then, just on a personal note, I had always kind of had this dream of wanting to launch an online course. I've always loved teaching just since I was a little one. But there's so many things that go into launching a course and building a website and launching an Instagram. I had never even created a reel prior to 2023. I didn't even know how to open the app and create a reel. I'm not joking. And so for me, that is what I mean when I say seeing these tools to unlock access to skills or capabilities that you didn't have. There's no way that working a full-time corporate job, having two little boys at home, that I would have been able to pursue this passion project if it hadn't been for these AI tools and capabilities that allowed me to do it more efficiently than would have been possible before. So that's, a little bit more of a personal story, but I share it just as showing that, again, it's not always just about how can this save me time, but what is something that you've maybe always had as this little voice in your head as a designer that you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could do this? Or I would always love this. Now you can. And I think stories like that are just very encouraging for our industry to see ways that people are using this to try new things in life.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. I think it enhances the capabilities in an impressive level. I feel the same within my company. And I think that it's just quite funny that you're teaching about it and you're also being somehow lifted by the fact that you have access to create all of this, which is it is true, we had to develop a lot of other skills to be able to implement everything, right? So now we are photographers, we have to learn how to communicate with the machine, which is a very important part of working with AI, which leads me to another question that I have for you. How do you, understanding that the tools are evolving, changing, and it's becoming easier for everyone to, even for the client, to come with an image out of these tools. Do you talk to your students about how to keep yourself, how to differentiate yourself, or how to keep your originality or your authorship or your style? What do you tell your students about this?
Yes, this is such an important topic, and it's absolutely it's something that I cover actually inside the course as well, because like you, I think this is so important, right? Is to have these honest conversations about what AI can do, what can be outsourced, and what cannot. And also to be able to have those conversations confidently with your clients as well. And so one of the things that I really try and help students focus on is, number one, you have to understand what are the actual capabilities. Because if you know the capabilities, then, okay, this is what it can do. And then you also know something else very important. You have tons of insight then into what it can't do. And those are the areas that I encourage students to think about leaning into as we head into this kind of next phase of the industry, because it is true that certain tasks that we do today as designers, we will not be doing in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. That is already true with things like, for example, floor plan generation, where we used to spend hours and hours laying out a floor plan specifically for commercial projects. And now with generative floor plan tools, you can very, very easily, and with a much higher degree of accuracy now compared to earlier models, can generate floor plans based on constraints and capacity and all of those things. But instead of being fearful about that, I think it's important that we're just honest about that certain skills like laying out floor plans, for example, may be a task that we don't do tomorrow. However, there are so many things as designers and architects that we do on a daily basis that AI is nowhere near that level of capability. And so thinking about what those areas are and leaning into those. And in particular, just to give you a few examples, number one, if you think about like the importance of, as a designer, of your true relationships and connections, not only with the client, but with the broader design team, with the local trades that are helping to bring the project to life, with the architecture team, with the engineering team. There's so many. Good design is built on strong, solid relationships. And a lot of times, clients are partially paying for that access. They don't want to have to go out and find the best contractor or the best person that's going to do the best tile. And so leaning into your relationships, the human parts of what you do, and thinking about those things that, like, we're not anytime soon going to see an AI robot walking a job site and being able to gather that human insight and empathy that goes into and feeds good design. So thinking about what are the skills that are uniquely human, a huge one of those being relationships, leaning into that, and leaning into the fact that you are using AI, not hiding behind it, celebrating it proudly, transparently. Because to me, if I've been on the reverse side where I've been a client for, home renovation projects and whatnot. But to me, working with a firm or a trusted partner that is showing me how they're using this technology to deliver a better design outcome for me, I would see that as a competitive advantage. So instead of shying away from those conversations, really thinking about ways that you can highlight how you are embracing this technology responsibly. And that starts with education. That's why I think it's so important to understand what these tools can and can't do, make the time to invest in your learning, because then you'll feel empowered to have those conversations with your clients instead of feeling like, oh, how am I going to talk about this with them?
Yeah. Well, I think we're close to the end of our interview. The last question that I normally do here is about implementation. So, of course, and we were talking about this just before the interview, is there anyone out there not using AI now? I don't know.
I don't think getting smaller for sure.
There's someone that is still skeptical. But I think that the question is more connected also to the students that are now learning interior design, and the professionals that are working and they are well established, but they don't know how to make the moment or find the moment to implement these in their practices. As an educator, and I know that you also talk to offices, right? You could talk a little bit about this as well. What do you recommend? What is the advice that you give to the people that want to start to implement these tools in a more smooth way, and not really just following the trends that we see online and getting really desperate or anxious about I have to do it, but not really thinking through?
Yeah, so I have a couple of pointers. One kind of area where I see people going down a not great path is when they try and apply, especially early on in their journey, like AI to everything all at once. Instead, I think I really...
Oh.
Be back.
Don't know what's going on.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll just... I can take it again.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you can start over.
That's okay. That's okay. So I think a common phenomenon that I see is when designers are first starting out, they try and apply AI to everything all at once. And something I would encourage designers that are really trying to get more out of these tools is to get very specific about their workflow and their process. So oftentimes this looks like, before you're even really engaging with these tools, doing an assessment of what's not working in my process, what feels slow, redundant, repetitive, and there's your answer of where AI is probably going to add some significant value. And then taking that a step further, instead of just opening up a chat bot every time you get to that point in your process, how can you then start thinking about how to build out systems that can scale? So that might look like, instead of pasting in the same prompt every single time, do you build a little custom GPT, a little custom assistant that is trained on that prompt, and then you share it across your team? And this is how you start going from just these one-off conversations that are not really building scale and creating more of a system approach where you're going to start to see more transformation. The other pointer I would say is that a common misstep of firms is saying to designers, well, we've given you all access to this AI tool, now go out and use it. And in a lot of ways, that's basically just assigning a homework assignment to designers that are often very busy, very strapped for time, and may not have the additional time to go and learn something new. So making the investment to make time and space for learning. How can you make learning fun? How can you say, this is an hour every week, we're going to get into the room and just experiment with these visualization tools, but making space for learning, because without that, you're just basically telling people to figure something out without giving them the skills that they need to excel at it. And then the third thing I would say is really about building a culture of sharing too, whether that is, if you're a solopreneur, maybe you join a chat like the wonderful WhatsApp chat you mentioned, Maria, or an AI community. Or if you are part of a firm, that's great, you have a built-in network, but getting into a practice of sharing, because if we think about these AI workflows, they are very isolated right now at the moment. Yeah. And there's so much power of knowing, like, oh, Maria, I didn't know that you could do X, Y, and Z. So not to underestimate that, of the power of being part of a community, sharing, and not only sharing, but being willing to put out into the world what you are working on, how it is helping you. Because that's where I see the firms that really take off. That's where the true transformation starts to happen, because they have built in a culture of experimentation and sharing amongst each other.
That's amazing, right? Like sharing, learning and sharing, right? And it's so important to mention that you have to give space to the designers to educate themselves, right? Because if you're not giving time, they're not gonna be able to catch up with everything that is happening around us right now, right?
Exactly.
Wow, that was a great conversation, Stacy. Is there anything else you would like to share with us, with the Brazilian audience, with your students or prospective students here in Miami or in US as well?
I would just say, I'm so often asked of, like, should we be fearful of this? Are you afraid of it taking over? And I always like to end on a moment of optimism and positivity, that I feel incredibly optimistic, even as someone who is fortunate to have a front row seat to how this is all evolving, that I feel very optimistic about the future of the interior design and architecture industry. And so I hope that just alleviates a little bit of worry and concern for those that are still, even if you're using it, of worrying, like, well, what does this mean for me long term? I feel just very optimistic about the future of the industry. And it's been so exciting to see more and more designers and architects lean into this. And I hope that momentum just continues.
Amazing. That's great. Great words to end the episode. I think we should be optimistic and leverage the tools to enhance our creativity, the quality of the processes, and everything else that is connected to being an interior designer in this moment of history, right?
That's right.
I'm so happy to have you here. It's really a personal pleasure to have met you after all this time, like really following you on the daily basis, seeing what you're talking about. Thank you so much. So I wanted to know if anyone else that is here that is our audience, in our audience, that wants to reach out to you or do your course or see your work, how can they do that? Where are you online on the social media?
Yes, absolutely. So on Instagram, you can find me at intelligent.designer.ai. I know that's a mouthful, but you can find me there. And then my website is just theintelligentdesigner.ai. And on my website, you will find all the information about joining my course and community, as well as my contact information. So if you have any questions about anything that we discussed today, I'm always happy to get connected.
I highly encourage all of you to go there to her Instagram, which is amazing and has she shares like a lot of tips, daily tips on how to improve your processes and your capabilities in interior design. Thank you so much, Stacy. For the ones that don't know Nuvem Design, we are also online on Instagram at Nuvem Design, DSGN. And of course, at NuvemTALKS. NuvemTALKS is also on Spotify and on YouTube. This was the episode 14. And thank you so much for your presence here, Stacy.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Bye. Vem com a nuvem.